Many of you are probably familiar with a communication model. I think the thing to be concerned about is to be aware that we all come from different places, we all have different backgrounds, and this often contributes to the breakdown in communication. Noise is anything that disrupts communication. And in our particular situation, what we're concerned with is cognitive dissonance. What this refers to is the inability to talk to someone or to have a discussion with someone because of very closely held beliefs. Most of this resides in what we call the emotional brain. There's the emotional brain and the rational brain. And we all think, well, I've given you all the facts. Why doesn't it work? It's because emotionally, we're all guilty of this. We all have our own specific beliefs. So, evidence that's against that belief doesn't work. They can become very uncomfortable with it. This is where the dissonance occurs. So they reject it. They're protecting themselves. Now, how can we overcome cognitive dissonance when we're reaching out to others, whether it's a whole group or another person? What I did, I found a few things online that I thought were workable. When you look at this, one of the things that I became aware of is a lot of this comes from neurolinguistic programming, NLP. I've always been somewhat mistrustful of it because it can be manipulative. So, number one, you have to be genuine, authentic, and you have to have respect for the other person if you're going to use these techniques. You don't want to be manipulative. Your goal is to establish a playing field where you can actually share ideas and perhaps change their minds. And it's all based on building trust. So, putting the other person down, that's obvious. That doesn't work. And just hitting them with facts, that doesn't work either. As I said before, you're dealing with the emotional mind. Your intent is to establish rapport. There are some little techniques salesmen use. For example, mirroring behavior. If you know they dress a particular way, you can sort of dress the way they do. If their posture is a certain way, you can imitate that posture. So there are physical things you can do to try to establish that rapport. The important thing is to listen. Listen to what they have to say. When you listen to people, they're a lot more inclined to listen to you. So sometimes, as hard as it is, it's simply a matter of just sitting back, being quiet, and really listening. Not just hearing, but listening. And don't be so anxious to come back and try to argue with them immediately. That doesn't work. You can pretty well tell what their objections are ahead of time. And you can accept them without agreeing. The idea is you don't want to turn them off by, again, you're putting them down when you do this. One of the things that was suggested was to use how and what questions, not why questions. Why questions tend to put people on the defensive. But if you ask, well, what do you think the real issue is here? Or how can we solve this problem? That takes it away from them. It takes it away from them rejecting you, because they're going to start thinking critically. And isn't that what we want, is for everybody to start thinking critically? So they start thinking critically about that issue. They're not necessarily going to think about you and how they hate you, but yeah, how do we take care of this issue? They always have to feel like you accept them anyway. I'm sure many of us have had experiences over the holidays, and it's been somewhat difficult. I have an agreement with my sister and her husband that we don't talk politics. It works out well. Of course, that's not where you want to go. You can't give up. Understand that this dissonance comes from a place of fear. It's emotional. So you have to deal with that fear. Now, there's going to come a time when they're going to hear what you're saying. They're going to listen to what you're saying. And their beliefs are going to begin to change. We are all gregarious people. We all belong to groups. Suddenly, they're no longer going to belong to that group. They're going to need your support, so you have to be there for them. There are more techniques for building trust, and some of them reflect on what I've just talked about. We talk about mirroring the person's behavior. Spend time with people. At first, you never really want to be with that person, but how else are you going to develop any type of communication with them? Again, you have to be authentic, you have to be genuine, and you have to be respectful. Yes, compliment them, but be truthful and honest about it. The thing is, when you compliment them, they see the same thing in you. If you tell them, you speak so well, then they think, well, she speaks well too. So it's kind of a reflective process. Try to display positive emotions. It's so easy to sit there and frown. It's much better if you smile. And, that's one of the trust-building techniques that we have here. Be warm, be competent. But what's most important is first, be warm. Because then they're more willing to trust you. They're more willing then to accept you as competent. But then you truly have to be competent. Reveal your flaws. You don't want to get into a pity party, but we all have faults, and it doesn't hurt to admit that. It makes us very human, and it's much easier to relate to somebody who's human. Emphasize shared values. There's some value that you probably share with that person. Now, number 8, casually touch them. You have to be very careful with that. There are a lot of people whose personal space is such, they don't like to be touched. And you can figure that out. You can tell from the way they react. And as far as touching, maybe just touching your arm, but it should be natural. It should come from something you're saying. It should come from caring about what that person is going through. See the other person how they want to be seen. You really have to be observant in order to figure out just exactly what that means for them. And then you have to reflect that back to them. I think number 11, the objective is to get personal. This is how we build relationships with one another. And show that you can keep their secrets too. Display a sense of humor. We all know humor goes to great lengths to reduce stress. Humor is a wonderful way to get people together. And let them talk about themselves. This is self-rewarding. I think all of us have been in the situation where we've been talking about ourselves to someone, and we go on, and it's really gratifying to be able to share things about ourselves with another person, instead of the person saying, oh, hi, bye, they're gone. It shows that, they're really interested in me because they're listening to what I'm saying about myself. And you yourself need to be a little vulnerable. that attracts people to you, whether you realize it or not. People want to reach out and help. And it says, act like you like them. Be genuine about that. There is something you can like about them.